Welcome everyone to the Lighthouse Missionary Baptist Church as we continue our journey in the month of February. It will be a message we didn't have special messages as we celebrate Black History Month. I'm calling the worship for this morning. Come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him in music and song. Our scripture lesson for the day is a little long, but it's after something we can get through. It comes from your talk time today, Ezra in chapter 10, verse 7 to 14. Again, that's Ezra, chapter 10, verse 7 to 14. Again, it's Ezra, chapter 10, verse 7 to 14. A proclamation was issued throughout Judah and Jerusalem for all the exiles to assemble in Jerusalem. Anyone who failed to appear within 3 days would forfeit all his property, in accordance with the decision of the officials and elders, and would himself be expelled from the assembly of the exiles. Within 3 days, all the men of Judah and Benjamin had gathered in Jerusalem. And on the 20th day of the 9th month, all the people were sitting in the square before the house of God, greatly distressed by the occasion and because of the rain. Then Ezra the priest stood up and said to them, "You have been unfaithful. You have married foreign women, adding to Israel's guilt. Now honor the Lord, the God of your ancestors, and do his will. Separate yourselves from the people around you and from your foreign lands." The whole assembly responded with a loud voice, "You are right. We must do as you said." But there are as many people here and it is the rainy season. So we cannot stand outside. Besides, this matter cannot be taken care of in a day or two, because we have sinned greatly in this thing. Let our official act for the whole assembly. Then let everyone in our towns who have married a foreign woman come at a set time, along with the elders and judges of each town, until the fierce anger of our God in this matter is turned away from us. We want to share with you today from the thought, the joy and strength of Black history. Black history is a time or a month, Lighthouse, for us to reclaim the human relationship of joy and strength of Black people's identity. It celebrates overcoming grief and tragedy and triumphs through the power of God. We have seen many descriptions, labels, or markers of our identity, from a chattel slave, Negro, African American, to Black and beautiful, and everything positive and negative in between. Blackness is far more than our consciousness of skin color. It involves a new definition of self, a different self-understanding, and a common sense of worth in the image of God that belongs to everybody. We cannot afford to leave it up to others to educate our children about their identity. Living into teaching and honoring the history of Black folks' long march to freedom, struggles, and walk with God in stewardship that belongs to us. Other folk can't teach this thing in Lighthouse. We have to take it upon ourselves to ensure that our children are educated about their past, that their futures can be bright. Ezra, a young Levi scribe, determined in his heart to study the law of the Lord and obey, and teach it to Israel. Ezra was not among the original group to return to Jerusalem from exile. When he finally arrived, Ezra saw the people's difficulty in adjusting their lives to a new beginning. He saw fear compromising the people's faith in a future with God, chaos ruling over possibilities, beliefs about who they were tore them into shambles. They thought intermarriage with foreigners was the reason for their Babylonian exile. But contrary to their belief, it was accepting the cultural deities as competitors for the loyalty that should be shown only unto God. That sent them into exile. They needed to reconnect their history or to who they had been with, to who God was calling them to become. That sounds like something we need to do. To reconnect to our history, to who we have been with, to who God has called us to be. It's easy to see the parallel between them and our people. You see, Lighthouse, the nation of Israel needed to do this because the sacred laws of Moses had not been read for a long time during their exile, reflecting and repurposing their lives with the sacred texts had not occurred. Standing before the assembly of people, Ezra opens the book of the law of Moses and reads it to all who will listen. And I like that, all who will listen. It's just like in today's time. We can teach, we can preach, but not everyone is truly listening. Hearing the sacred book gave the people a kind of epiphany, a sudden moment of clarity about themselves, seeing the gap between the text and their lives, who they were and striving to become. Different people brought surface grief and weeping, falling short of the vision. They were overwhelmed with grief. Ezra said to the people, after publicly reading to them the sacred text of Moses, do not grieve, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. Instead of letting people stay in the perils of despair, fear, and guilt, Ezra seeds of joy and power they need to go forward. Like the nation of Israel, there's a lot of great joy and strength in Black history. All of that history is more than the I have a dream speech of Martin Luther King. We ought to be cautious about civic approaches and religious attempt to mask who we are, lifting ourselves out of the rut of social anxiety depends on who and what we read in our history. The Black church ought to lead the way, celebrating the writings, the legacies of Black matriarchs and patriarchs, educating to liberate the mind and spirit of the next generation. Our children ought to grow up knowing the God to whom our ancestors prayed from the bowels of slave ships. They need to know the God that our ancestors, their ancestors encountered on plantations, rush harvests. The God who brought us all the way to freedom through him. But when we look at the history of our walk with God, we look at the dead places of justice. We watch this nation strangle almost to death with godly righteousness. When people have, let me say that again. When people have dignity in death rather than dignity in life, we feel the fear of a panic-stricken world today. In our struggle, we feel the hunger of the hungry, the sickness of the sick, the homeless and prisoners' plight, wishing for the strength to respond with all our hearts, whether we realize it or not. We live on a modern political plantation. A modern plantation that wants to control what our children read, legislating them into the identity crisis, setting the tone for their actions, motivations, impulses, and that recalibrate their thoughts and social outcomes. They're pouring into our children a white mold to shape them into their view of the world and how they see reality. They will celebrate Black history accomplishments. The first Black American to do this or that, such as Kamala Harris, the first woman of color and Vice President of the United States. She is celebrating the camouflage systems that are used to hold back the Black masses. We cannot be satisfied, Lighthouse, with telling our children they are as good as anyone else. Our children already know and have shown the world that they are not inferior. They know that they are good enough to compete on every field of life. We have taught them that they must not allow others to do for them what they can do for themselves. We have taught them that honest work is a source of dignity. Concern and respect for others reflect the same that they should have for themselves. Standing on their own 2 feet is better than immature codependency on someone weaker than themselves. But the most important of all, for the height and the length of their life's journey, we have taught them that the joy of the Lord Rejoicing in the Lord is their strength. Have we taught them that the joy and power come from relying on God's high purpose that lifts them to new possibilities and witness in the world? Have we told them the worst things history have done to our people, to black people? Still, their presence keeps showing up on the other side of pain and suffering. There's joy showing up on the other side of centuries of slavery. Joy on the other side of lynching, Jim Crow codes, prisons, and violence against black people. If you think about it, Lighthouse, it is uniquely both. Joy comes out of grief and struggle. Joy is a battle for righteous causes. The joy of overcoming suffering gives us strength. The joy of the Lord reflects awareness of who God is and his faithfulness. Joy demonstrates dedication and response to God. Joy is the Lord acknowledges God in all ways of being and doing. Let joy and the strength of Black history be the catalyst to allow our children and our children's children to be change makers, to propel them to a greatness that will not allow the sacrifices of our ancestors to have been in vain. The joy and strength of Black history.